In the secluded town of Ravenswood, a sinister legend haunted the memories of its residents. It was said that deep within the ancient Ravenswood cemetery lay a crypt, cursed and forgotten, known as the Crypt of the Damned. According to the old tales, those who dared to enter would never return, consumed by the vengeful spirits that dwelled within. One stormy night, a group of intrepid friends Sarah, Ethan, Chloe, and Ryan decided to uncover the truth behind the legend. Driven by curiosity and a love for the supernatural, they gathered their equipment and set off toward the cemetery. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow on the weathered tombstones as lightning cracked in the distance. "Are we really doing this?" Ryan asked, his voice betraying a hint of nervousness. "We have to," Sarah replied, her determination unwavering. It's time someone put an end to the mystery of the cursed crypt. As they approached the cemetery gate, a chilling wind howled through the trees, as if warning them to turn back. But they pressed on, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The cemetery was vast and overgrown, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. After what felt like an eternity, they finally found the crypt. Its entrance was marked by a stone archway, weathered and covered in ivy. An iron gate, rusty and foreboding, barred their way. Sarah produced an old iron key she had discovered in her late grandmother's belongings, a key that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. With a deep breath, she inserted the key into the lock and turned it. The gate creaked open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase that descended into the earth. The air grew colder, and an oppressive silence settled around them as they began their descent. At the bottom of the staircase, they found themselves in a dimly lit chamber. Flickering candles lined the walls, casting dancing shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. In the center of the chamber lay an ancient stone sarcophagus, its surface etched with cryptic symbols and eerie faces. Ethan approached the sarcophagus, his flashlight beam revealing an inscription in a language none of them recognized. "What do you think it says?" he asked, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Whatever it is, it's not good," Chloe replied, her eyes scanning the dark corners of the room. "We need to be careful." As they explored the crypt, strange things began to happen. The temperature dropped even further, and a faint whispering filled the arid, unintelligible murmur that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Shadows flitted at the edge of their vision, and the sense of being watched grew unbearable. Sarah felt a cold hand on her shoulder and spun around, but there was no one there. "Did you feel that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yeah," Ryan replied, his face pale. "I think we're not alone." Suddenly, the sarcophagus lid began to move, as if pushed by an unseen force. The friends backed away, their hearts pounding in their chests. The lid slid open, revealing a skeletal figure clad in tattered robes. Its eyes glowed with an unholy light, and a malevolent grin spread across its face. "Welcome, intruders," the figure intoned in a voice that seemed to reverberate through their very souls. "You have trespassed upon the domain of the damned." Panic set in as the friends tried to flee, but the crypt's entrance had sealed shut, trapping them within. The whispers grew louder, forming into a cacophony of voices that filled their minds with terror. The skeletal figure stepped forward, its bony fingers reaching out to them. Sarah realized that the key she held was not just a means of entry, it was a weapon against the curse. She raised the key and began to chant a protection spell she had discovered in her grandmother's old journal. The air crackled with energy as the spell took effect, and the crypt seemed to shudder in response. The skeletal figure recoiled, its form flickering like a dying flame. "No!" it screamed, its voice filled with rage. "You cannot defeat us." With a final burst of strength, Sarah completed the spell. The chamber was filled with a blinding light, and the skeletal figure disintegrated into dust. The whispers ceased, and the oppressive darkness lifted, replaced by an eerie calm. The friends found themselves back at the crypt's entrance, the iron gate open, and the storm subsiding. They stumbled out into the night, their faces pale and their bodies trembling. The legend of the cursed crypt had proven all too real, but they had survived. As they made their way back to town, they vowed never to speak of what had transpired within the crypt. The curse had been broken, but the memory of that night would forever haunt them. Ravenswood Cemetery would remain a place of shadows and secrets, its true nature known only to those who had faced the terror of the cursed crypt of Ravenswood. Absolutely! Let's dive even deeper into the chilling tale of the cursed crypt of Ravenswood. Days passed since their harrowing escape from the crypt, but the friends couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed them back. Ethan started hearing whispers in his dreams, while Chloe noticed shadowy figures lurking in the corners of her vision. Ryan felt a constant sense of dread, and Sarah found herself obsessively researching the crypt's history and the occult practices of Alistair Blackwood. One evening, as they gathered at Sarah's house to discuss their next steps, a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles they had lit for protection. The shadows seemed to grow darker, and the whispers returned, faint but unmistakable. "We have to go back," Sarah said, her voice trembling but resolute. "We didn't finish what we started. The curse is still alive." Reluctantly, the friends agreed. They armed themselves with more protective talismans and spells, determined to end the curse once and for all. As they approached the cemetery, the air grew colder, and an unnatural fog rolled in, obscuring their path. They descended into the crypt once more, the air thick with an oppressive sense of dread. The chamber was as they had left it, the shattered remains of the sarcophagus still lying on the floor. But now, an eerie blue light emanated from a hidden passageway that had been revealed by the destruction of the sarcophagus. With trepidation, they ventured into the passage, the whispers growing louder with each step. The walls were lined with ancient runes and grotesque carvings, telling the story of Blackwood's descent into madness and his pact with dark forces. The passage led them to a hidden chamber where an altar stood, surrounded by flickering candles and occult symbols. Sarah realized that this was the source of the curse, the place where Blackwood had performed his final, forbidden ritual. To break the curse, they would need to complete the ritual, but in reverse, using the knowledge Sarah had gleaned from her research. As they began the counter-ritual, the air crackled with energy, and the shadows seemed to come alive, writhing and twisting around them. The whispers grew deafening, and the temperature plummeted. The friends held hands, forming a circle around the altar, their voices joining in a chant to banish the darkness. Suddenly, a figure materialized before them, Alistair Blackwood, his eyes burning with malevolent intent. "You cannot undo what I have wrought," he snarled, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You will join me in the shadow realm." But the friends stood their ground, their chant growing louder and more powerful. The runes on the walls began to glow, and the shadows recoiled, their hold weakening. With a final, defiant cry, Sarah completed the counter-ritual, and a blinding light filled the chamber. Blackwood's form disintegrated, his screams of rage fading into nothingness. The shadows were banished, and the whispers ceased. The air grew still, and an eerie calm settled over the crypt. As the light faded, the friends found themselves standing in the quiet chamber, the altar now cold and lifeless. The passageway had sealed itself, and the oppressive darkness was gone. They had broken the curse. Exhausted but relieved, they made their way back to the surface, the first rays of dawn breaking through the fog. Ravenswood Cemetery was silent, the crypt's malevolent presence finally laid to rest. The friends knew that their experience would stay with them forever, a reminder of the darkness they had faced and the courage they had shown. They vowed to keep the story of the cursed crypt alive, to ensure that no one else would ever fall victim to its evil. And though the town of Ravenswood returned to its quiet, unassuming existence, the legend of the cursed crypt of Ravenswood would live on, whispered in hushed tones and shrouded in mystery. For some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed, and the shadows of the past are never far behind.